Hi everyone, Aaron here, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about the Berg family and the Cardone family. These are not only both very well-known families, but they are both massive financial contributors of the Church of Scientology. Today we're going to look at an example where a member of the Berg family ratted out a member of the Cardone family to the Scientology authorities for violations relating to the Scientologists' beliefs about the homosexuals. Now, the most well-known member of the Berg family is Dr. Eric Berg. Dr. Berg is internet famous. He has donated millions, perhaps tens of millions of dollars to Scientology. He has also completed the entirety of Scientology's bridge to total freedom. In Scientology speak, you would say he's completed OT8, Superpower, and all 3 Ls. The most well-known member of the Cardone family is Grant Cardone. Another internet celebrity and super Scientologist. Grant has also donated in excess of $10 million to Scientology, and Grant has also completed all of Scientology's bridge to total freedom, OT8, all 3 Ls, Superpower. For those of you who may already be familiar with Grant Cardone, how many of you knew that he has an identical twin brother named Gary, who's also a Scientologist, is also a big financial supporter of Scientology, and who has in his own right done most of, if not all of, Scientology's bridge to total freedom. Gary has always been less flashy, less high profile than his brother Grant, but he has definitely embraced and supported Scientology to similar levels that Grant has. But no matter how famous or rich or respected someone is in the world of Scientology, no one is safe from Scientology's snitching culture. Scientology is notorious for requiring all of its members to constantly be reporting on each other, submitting these written reports to the ethics officer of the nearest Scientology organization. Let's take a look at one such report that Karen Berg, Dr. Eric Berg's wife, wrote on Gary Cardone and Monica Cardone. I'm going to explain this report and decipher some of the Scientologies that's in it, because this report is absolutely loaded with Scientologies, and even explaining it all is going to be kind of unbearable, but we're going to give it a shot. And just before we do that, let me quickly thank the sponsor of today's video, me. If you're looking to buy or sell a home anywhere in the Tampa Bay area and you would like to work with me, message me at aaron@dreamrealty.com. So, okay, let's take a look at this. First thing that we see, this is called a things that should not be report. The most popular type of report in Scientology is called a knowledge report, or a KR. But if you write a KR on someone, policy says that you have to send the person you're reporting a copy of the report that you're sending. So a lot of Scientologists who are a bit more on the cowardly end of the spectrum choose to write what's called a things that should not be report. The reason for this is that Scientology policy says if you write a things that shouldn't be report, you don't have to send a copy to the person that you're reporting. The policy says that you write a things that shouldn't be report when you don't actually know who you're submitting a report on or who is at fault, but you're reporting a situation to the ethics officer for them to investigate to then determine who is at fault. Now in this report we can see Karen's not wondering who's at fault. Karen is writing a report on Gary and Monica, but she's choosing to write a things that shouldn't be report because she doesn't want Gary and Monica to know that she's writing this report. This is an example of Scientology backstabbing and cowardice. Now, before we jump into all the Scientologies at the top of this report, I want to jump right into the meat and potatoes because that's what's most interesting. So the report says, website created by Cardones with homosexuals on the front page of site. The Cardones created a website to sell a product that is supposed to create lean muscle mass. It's called Ultramax. The product itself may be a fine product. However, the site they created to sell the product has pictures of gay men embracing and playing on the beach. Such pictures forward aberration and are re-stimulative. The Cardones are well-known Scientologists, and Gary is mid-OT7. This is a weird solution to sell a product by forwarding homosexuality on their site. The site is SwissSciences.com. The product link is Ultramax. Since I wrote something to the charter committee, a portion of the site has come down. However, the main page with the pics are all still up. This is so, Karen Berg, OT7, PES, DC Day is what that stands for. And I'll explain a lot of these definitions. I cannot help but be reminded of Top Gun when I read about pictures of gay men embracing and playing on the beach. Sounds like a hot Top Gun volleyball scene, so I don't see what the problem is. It was okay in Top Gun. The Cardones are well-known Scientologists. Gary is mid-OT7. OT7 is the longest auditing level that exists in Scientology. It's also the penultimate auditing level. OT8 is the very top of Scientology's bridge to total freedom, but OT8 is a very quick action. It only takes a couple weeks. OT7 takes years and years and years and years. And one of the reasons this level is so notorious in Scientology is because once you're on it, every 6 months, you have to return to Clearwater, to the Flag Land Base, and receive an interrogation called a sec check to make sure you're being ethical and keeping your nose clean and not reading bad things on the internet and not speaking to people that Scientology considers are bad. Literally every 6 months, you have to come in and be interrogated on the e-meter about this. And that process is not cheap. It's not quick, and it's one of the reasons Scientologists at the top levels of the bridge end up spending so much goddamn money, is because they're constantly having to come here and pay top dollar to be sec checked at the Flag Land Base. Okay, she carries on. This is a weird solution to sell a product by forwarding homosexuality on their site. Okay, so let's take a moment to discuss Scientology's actual views about homosexuality. Scientology has recently gone to great lengths to pretend like they're very gay friendly. What that means in the real world is that they are perfectly happy to accept money from gay people as they are from straight people. But let's not get it twisted. Scientology does not look favorably upon being gay or the gay lifestyle or whatever that means. The fact is, Scientology believes that being gay is what they would call an aberration, a non-optimum condition created in a being as a result of things in their reactive mind. And although Scientologists are willing to accept money from gay people to do Scientology, until Scientology is successful in fixing your gayness, they're not actually going to let you to continue up through the upper levels of the Scientology bridge. So let's take a very quick look here at what Scientologists call the Hubbard chart of human evaluation. This chart goes along with the Scientology book called Science of Survival. This chart and that book are considered core doctrine, unalterable, core and unalterable doctrine of Scientology. This chart lays out along the top a whole bunch of different personality types, and along the side, Hubbard gives what he calls his emotional tone scale. And Hubbard says that at different levels of the tone scale, you can predict human behavior. And Hubbard places homosexuality at 1.1 on Scientology's tone scale. 1.1 on the tone scale is known as covert hostility. And Hubbard says, I'll zoom out here a little bit, that at this level of 1.1, you can predict human behavior along all of these categories that he has at the top of it. So let's take a look at this. 1.1, covert hostility. So behavior and physiology. Hubbard is saying that people who are at 1.1 on the tone scale are capable of only minor execution. Psychiatric range. People at this emotional tone level will be psychotic. Medical range. People at 1.1 will have endocrine and neurological illnesses. But let's take a look at what we have here on sexual behavior and attitude toward children. Hubbard says that people at 1.1, you have promiscuity, perversion, sadism, irregular practices, use of children for sadistic purposes. This is what L. Ron Hubbard says is the sexual behavior of people who are 1.1, and Hubbard says that all homosexuals are 1.1. Now, this is just a chart. Like I said, the chart accompanies the book Science of Survival that goes into much greater detail about Hubbard's views on gay people, as well as anyone at the level of 1.1 on the tone scale. Hubbard doesn't necessarily say that all 1.1s are gay. It's just that all gays are 1.1. And in Science of Survival, there's a passage where Hubbard says that the world would be markedly improved if all 1.1s were quietly disposed of without sorrow. And if the laws of the land weren't such as to prevent such a course of action, it would be a productive course of action. Okay, let's go back to the report. The product is Ultramax. Since I wrote something to the Charter Committee, a portion of the site has come down. Okay, when she mentions Charter Committee, she's talking about something to do with a segment of Scientology called WISE, the World Institute of Scientology Enterprises. This is the business consulting side of Scientology. And the Charter Committee is something that exists within WISE. There's a Charter Committee for every Scientology organization, and it really exists to keep business disputes between Scientologists off of the lines of a Scientology organization. And the Charter Committee is composed of public Scientologists, not staff members, not Sea Org members. You can almost think of it as Scientology already has things that require members to submit to internal arbitration instead of trying to resolve matters in the courts. This is almost like an arbitration within an arbitration. Taking something to the charter committee is like a way to resolve it without involving the official Scientology authorities. And then when that fails, Scientologists will usually drag whatever the matter is in front of the actual Scientology authorities to try to get some sort of resolution. And that comes up here because clearly this is a business issue. Karen Berg is complaining about something the Cardones are doing on a website that has nothing to do with Scientology. It just has to do with the Cardones' business. And you basically have Karen Berg bitching about the Cardones' business practices, but she cares about this so much that once she didn't get the result that she was seeking through the charter committee, she did just what I said. She dragged it onto official Scientology lines, and she sent this report to the AOMAA. So AO stands for Advanced Organization. That is a type of Scientology organization that delivers the OT levels. Any Scientologist that is doing the OT levels is under the jurisdiction of their nearest advanced organization. FLAG in Clearwater is an advanced organization, and in Los Angeles, there's what's called AOLA, the Advanced Organization of Los Angeles. It's one of the blue buildings on L. Ron Hubbard Way. It's the one southernmost, easternmost on L. Ron Hubbard Avenue and Fountain. That is AOLA. Now, from this report, we can tell this report is going to the FLAG AO, not the AO in LA, and that's because also copied on this is the Coachman MAA. Coachman is a Scientology building here in Clearwater. It used to be the building where Scientology public would do courses. That building has now been repurposed for a different Scientology use. But we also can suspect it's FLAG because the Bergs are located in Washington, D.C. And I happen to know that Gary, at least at this time, lived in Clearwater because I knew Gary. The next thing we see here is that this report is being copied to their PC folders. The PC folder is someone's auditing folder. As someone moves up the bridge to total freedom and does hundreds and thousands of auditing sessions, every auditing session has notes taken for it. All of those auditing notes are stored in the PC folder. PC stands for pre-clear. Pre-clear is short for anyone getting auditing who has not yet achieved the Scientology level of clear. Technically, after you're clear and you start your OT levels, you're supposed to be called a pre-OT, but PC is just shorthand for anyone getting auditing. So this routing on this report indicates to us that Karen wants to make sure the next time Gary or Monica find themselves in front of a Scientology ethics officer, or the next time any case supervisor happens to review the auditing progress in their folder, that they are going to see this report and that this is going to be dealt with forthwith. All right, at the closing of this report, we see that Karen Berg has signed off. She's also OT7, and she's the PES DC Day. PES means Public Executive Secretary. DC Day means the day shift of the Scientology organization in Washington, D.C. Some organizations have two separate shifts, and they are considered two completely separate staffs with separate executive directors and everything. One shift is called the Day Organization, and that shift is Monday through Friday, 9 to 6, more or less. The second shift is called the Foundation Organization, and that is nights and weekends. Two separate organizations with completely separate staffs operating out of the same building. Back to Public Executive Secretary. A Scientology organization has an executive director, and under the executive director are 3 executive secretaries. The Public Executive Secretary is over the third of the organization that is responsible for bringing new people into Scientology. They're not supposed to have anything to do with servicing current Scientologists. Their entire role is introducing new people, bringing in new people, getting in as much raw meat as possible, as they say. And now that I think about it, when we see that Karen is a staff member at the Washington, D.C. organization, and Gary is a public Scientologist who lives in Clearwater, technically speaking, within the world of Scientology, these two people have absolutely nothing to do with each other. They're not associated with each other within the Scientology organizational hierarchy. They're not associated with each other professionally in business. And that's what makes this such a great example of the Scientology snitching culture. Karen just happened to see something, had nothing to do with her, was none of her business, affected her in 0 ways. And she still issued this report copied the MAA at the AO, where Grant would be doing his auditing, and she still copied the MAA. Oh, by the way, MAA means Master at Arms. That is just the Sea Org equivalent to an ethics officer. If you're a Sea Org member and you're an ethics officer, you're called an MAA. If you're not a Sea Org member and you're an ethics officer, you're just called the ethics officer. So Karen copied the ethics officer at the AO, where Gary would be doing his auditing. She copied the ethics officer at the Coachman building, where Gary would be doing his studying. And she copied Gary's auditing folder and Monica's auditing folder. That's a full court press trying to make sure that Gary and Monica both definitely get in trouble for this. Last thing in this report that I'll address, such pictures forward aberration and are restimulative. What does that mean in Scientology? The definition here for aberration, a departure from what is normal, usual, or expected, typically one that is unwelcome. That matches pretty well with the Scientology definition. In Dianetics, L. Ron Hubbard defines aberration as any deviation from a straight line. He makes an analogy to behavior, where perfect ideal behavior would exist in the absence of a reactive mind. But those who have a reactive mind, the engrams that are stored in the bank of that reactive mind, aberrate people's behavior. So aberration, again, it's a very good definition, a departure from what is normal, usual, or expected. And to sprinkle some Scientology on it, the cause of the departure from what is normal is because of the engrams that are being restimulated in people's reactive minds. So what Karen is really saying here is that by showing images of gay men embracing and playing on the beach, doing that will re-stimulate people's engrams and result in further aberrated behavior. This is sort of Scientology speak for you're going to turn people gay by re-stimulating engrams involving gay behavior. This really is how Scientologists think. And this report is a perfect example of Scientology snitching culture and how no one is safe from it. Now, speaking of Eric Berg and the Berg family, Dr. Eric Berg's son, Ian, not that long ago, very publicly announced he was departing from Scientology. In the process of doing that, Ian shared some details about the extent of Dr. Berg's involvement in and support of Scientology. That was, for pretty much all of Dr. Berg's fans and supporters, this was the first any of them were hearing about it. Dr. Berg is one of those celebrities who Scientology has not asked to vocally support and promote Scientology. Dr. Berg has kept his Scientology cards very close to the vest. There was actually a lawsuit not that long ago that one of his employees was bringing about how much pressure they were under in the company to join Scientology and participate in Scientology, and that lawsuit was very quickly settled. Mixing Scientology and business practices is getting more and more riskier for Scientologists who are private business owners these days. The courts are not looking favorably upon the kind of pressure Scientologists exert on their employees. I've done a bunch of videos recently for a guy named Tampa Brad on YouTube, and he promotes on YouTube his business Home Love Construction and Scientology, and he's not shy on his channel about promoting the intermarriage, if you will, between Scientology and his business practices. And I can tell you that Tampa Brad and Home Love Construction don't make nearly the kind of money that Dr. Berg makes. And if Brad were to find himself dealing with a lawsuit for pushing Scientology on his employees, I'm not sure that Brad and Home Love Construction would weather that storm as easily as Dr. Berg and many other Scientologist professionals who are chiropractors, dentists, physical therapists, these people who try to push Scientology on their employees and try to pressure them to do courses or get auditing or do seminars. It tends to go very badly for those business owners. So anyway, that's all I have on this. This report gives us a glimpse into the wild, wacky world of Scientology and its snitching culture. And it's true. No matter how famous you are, no matter how rich you are, no matter how deeply committed you are to Scientology, nobody is safe from Scientology's snitching culture. All right, that is all I have for now. Thank you to all of you who watch until the very end, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe right